In this video, we're going to take a look at one of the coolest features of Excel, which is pivot tables. Pivot table allows you to summarize large amounts of data with just a few clicks of the mouse. That's why it's so neat. It does an awful lot with just a little bit of input from the user. Pivot tables only make sense if you have columns that have repeating data in them so that you can summarize the data. So in this particular data file here, I've got 3 types of coffee. So Brazilian coffee, French coffee, and Turkish coffee are repeating over and over again. So I can get summary information about each one of those coffee types. I've got the same 6 months of the year repeating over and over and over again in column B. So I can get summary information by month. And in column C, I've got regions appearing repeatedly, so I can get summary information based on region. Okay, so if you don't have repeating data, a pivot table is not going to do you any good. But if you do have repeating data and you want to summarize it, a pivot table is an awesome tool for doing that. If you want to do a pivot table, it is on the Insert tab. And just like when you're doing other database kinds of stuff, it seems to me like this kind of ought to be on the Data tab, but it's not. But when you're doing other database kinds of things in Excel, there are a couple of things. You need to have column headings or field names. And before you start, you just have to put the cursor in the data someplace. There's no need to select anything. As a matter of fact, if you do select part of your table, you may end up getting different results from what you want. So put the cursor any place in the data, including here. Now this is not really part of my data, but because that's a merged cell, Excel is smart enough to figure out that that's not part of the data. So just click any place in here. Click on the Insert tab, click on Pivot Table, and first thing it says is what is your range, and here's why you want the cursor to be in the data to begin with. If you're in the data and there are no blank rows in it, then it will automatically figure out what your range is. And I like to put it on a new worksheet just because it is less cluttered if you do it that way, but you could also leave it on the same worksheet. And then click on OK. So we don't have to do anything here. If we put the cursor in the right place to begin with, this is good. And if you want to put it on a new worksheet, this is good. And then just click on OK. So we got a new worksheet now. And it looks a little different from anything else we've seen. We've got pivot table tools up here at the top. We've got an Analyze tab and a Design tab. And over here on the left, we've got this stuff we've never seen before, which is basically just a blank place where your pivot table is going to go. And over here on the right, we see a list of pivot table fields. So every field name that appeared at the top of columns A, B, C, and D in row 2 there is going to appear over here. And there's some other stuff down here that we'll take a look at in another video. But this is how easy it is to do a pivot table. Let's say I want to know how much I sold of each product for the period that's represented on the spreadsheet. Well, click on Product, and since there were 3 values in that column, it lists all 3 of them. And then click on Revenue, and it will tell me what the sum of my revenue was. Now, unfortunately, it doesn't do any formatting here, although the reason this isn't formatted is because I didn't format it on the sheet that I started with over here. Now let's click off of the data someplace, and if I click off of my pivot table, which goes from here down to here, you'll notice this stuff disappears. So if you're working with a pivot table and you can't figure out where all this stuff went over here, it probably means that you just clicked off of the pivot table somewhere. If I go back and click on the pivot table, everything comes back. And if I want to take these numbers here in column B and I want to format them with a $sign, and let's not do any decimal places on numbers that big, I can format them. And so you can go in and format it too, just like you'd format anything else. Now one other thing, some other examples. Let's turn revenue off. Let's turn product off. Let's say I want to know how much I sold each month. Okay. Well, it'll list all of the months. I've only got January through June there, and it'll tell me what the sum of the revenue was for those. Let's say I want to know what my revenue was by region. Turn that off, turn region on. It lists my 4 regions over here and tells me what my revenue was in each region. Now here's kind of a cool thing. If I turn on product and month, then it will give me the products first and then each month the individual sales for that product with a total, and here it puts the totals at the top rather than at the bottom, which is what you might be used to, and then it gives you the grand total down here at the bottom. If I decide that I want to kind of turn it around and do month first and then find out what I sold of each product every month, it's just a matter of the order that you click on them over here. If you have fields that have text values in them, like product has a text value, month has a text value, region has a text value, when you click on them, you notice they go down here into this rows area down at the bottom, which we'll look at more in a later video. If you select a number value, a number field, then it puts that in the right bottom box over here, puts it in the values box. And you know, if you really wanted to get kind of crazy with this, you could even add the region here, and you know, it's showing us we must have clicked on month first, so we clicked on month first, and then for each month it'll give us each product, and then for each product it'll give us the data by region. And again, you can change this around just by changing the order in which you click on the field names over here. And that's what you do if you want to get a pivot table where this data that is summarized is in a list format like this, basically a couple of columns with data. And oh, there's one other thing you might want to do if you're doing a list. Let's try one more thing here. Let's get rid of region here so it's not so cluttered. Okay, so we got a little bit of data over here, and let's say that one of the things that I want to do is I want to sort the data. Okay, I want to know which month was the best. Well, just click on any one of these numbers here, and actually right-click on it. And sort is an option, and I want the best month at the top, so we're going to do sort largest to smallest, and there we go, top month at the top, and the bottom revenue month is down here at the bottom for each one of my products. Okay. Now, if I click on one of the bold numbers here, we've got two levels here. We've got the totals for each product, and we've got the totals for each month. If I right-click on that and do a sort, and let's do largest to smallest, it will sort based on the bold numbers here. So now French coffee was the top seller, then Brazilian, and then Turkish, and then within each one of these it still has the data sorted in descending order. So I've got the best month at the top and the worst month down at the bottom. So you can do multi-level sorts in here as well. And the last thing that we're going to take a look at here is you may not want to see all of this stuff. Okay. For one thing, that's the wrong place. If I don't want to see, let's say, French coffee, I can, you know, just collapse this. If I want to see the months for it, I still see French coffee. If I don't want to see a particular coffee brand, I can turn one of them off, click on OK, and it just shows me the remaining ones, and it updates the grand total, so it just reflects the ones that we're looking at. Let's go back and turn that on, click on OK. And one last thing we're going to look at is the ability here to filter your data and just show some of it. So let's say that I don't want to see all 6 months, I just want to see the top 3 months. Well, what you have to do is, and this is kind of unintuitive, you have to right-click on the month name rather than the value over here, even though those are the things that I want to look at to determine the top 3. So right-click on that and choose Filter, and then choose Top 10, and Top 10 is generic, so you can pick the top whatever you want. I want the top 3 items by sum of revenue, and you can also do the bottom if you want. You can make this any number you want, and click on OK. And now it's showing me the 3 best months for selling French coffee, the 3 best months for selling Brazilian coffee, and the 3 best months for selling Turkish coffee. And we'll look at some other features of pivot tables in another video.